Hey, yo, it's Ugly Truck Driver. How the flock are you? Well, we all know by now, after a year and a half on this Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case, Zimmerman was declared not guilty or acquitted, however you want to put it. Now, I've got other videos up here. Matter of fact, I had one up here. I had to literally block all commentary on it because the ghetto types were sitting there even giving me death threats for my commentary about riots and everything else. It seems a simple court action on a shooting between a black teenager and a Hispanic man has taken over America. And it went from being a simple court action of was it murder or was it not murder or was it manslaughter, got turned into a racial divide, which has become very divisive in our country. And in the process, my commentary and everything else has been considered racist and bigot and you name it. But here is where, after the Trayvon Martin shooting, race came into it. This man here, the President of the United States of America, Barack Hussein Obama, started it with this commentary.
Well, I'm the head of the executive branch, and the Attorney General reports to me, so I've got to be careful about my statements to make sure that we're not impairing any investigation that's taking place right now. But obviously, this is a tragedy. I can only imagine what these parents are going through. And when I think about this boy, I think about my own kids. And I think every parent in America should be able to understand why it is absolutely imperative that we investigate every aspect of this, and that everybody pulls together, federal, state, and local, to figure out exactly how this tragedy happened. So I'm glad that not only is the Justice Department looking into it, I understand now that the governor of the state of Florida has formed a task force to investigate what's taking place. I think all of us have to do some soul searching to figure out how does something like this happen. And that means that we examine the laws and the context for what happened, as well as the specifics of the incident. But my main message is to the parents of Trayvon Martin. If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. And, I think they are right to expect that all of us, as Americans, are going to take this with the seriousness it deserves, and that we're going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened. All right. Thank you.
All right, so that's what he said back there on March 23rd, 2012. Well, in case Mr. Obama hadn't noticed, okay, the FBI came in, did a background and a research on it, and came up with the facts that this was not a hate crime, and that the FBI need not get involved. But since the recent judgment as of last night, now all of a sudden the Department of Justice, that wonderful guy, Eric Holder, Fast and Furious, decides they're going to reopen the case and see if they can't bring a suit against George Zimmerman under civil grounds for civil rights violations. To me, that's kind of like double jeopardy, even though technically they say that it isn't. But beyond the fact that this man started the race part, here's Al Sharpton, March 25th, 2012, down there in Florida. And we all know that Sharpton's been a race baiter for years. If anybody remembers the Tawana Brawley case back in 1987, which turned out to be totally false, this man is continually out there stirring it up.
He went to the store for his brother. He came back and lost his life. Trayvon could have been any one of our sons. Trayvon could have been any one of us. Trayvon represents a reckless disregard for our lives that we've seen too long. And we come to tell you tonight, enough is enough. We are tired of going to jail for nothing and others going home for something. Zimmerman should have been arrested that night. Zimmerman had probable cause that night. You cannot defend yourself against a pack of Skittles and iced tea. Don't talk to us like we stupid. Don't talk to us like we're ignorant. We love our children like you love yours. Lock them up. Yeah. When Attorney Crump called me, I told him I don't believe in drive-by activism. If we in it, we gonna be in it till we end and win. When I met Sabrina and Tracy, I told them that we'll be in it, not if we win it, but we gonna win. We're gonna win because we have no choice. Because we cannot allow a legal precedent to be established in this city that tells us it is legal for a man to kill us, tell any story he wants, and walks out with the murder weapon. Some people said to me in the media, let me get this straight. They said, Reverend, seems like a lot of people are angry. Are you afraid of violence? I said, no. I'm afraid of the violence you already had. Violence is killing Trayvon. Don't act like we are the ones violent. We didn't shoot nobody. We come for a shot, not to shoot him. He went.
Well, there he is down there, stirring it up, like I said, back on March 25th, 2012. The funny thing is, okay, the original investigating officer that looked into the facts, that followed it up, okay, came up with the attitude that there was not enough information available to get an indictment. The other thing is that seems to be missing here, that Sharpton and the rest of these race baiters are missing, is the fact that there was never a grand jury called to investigate this whole thing. Why? Because there was not enough physical evidence. And then the police chief, through political forces between Sharpton, the president, the Department of Justice, was told that they needed to arrest Zimmerman and prosecute him for murder. And that police chief was either let go or fired or terminated or quit because of the political pressure brought upon him. And then we get this other genius here. You all know him. Jesse Jackson, just another race baiter out there stirring it up. And this is on March 25th, 2012 also.
If you just say about the people that live over in the hoodie, if you lift him up, he's innocent. He's smart. He got loving parents. He's sober. He's innocent. He represents all of us. Now they've made Trayvon a martyr. Martyrs have power to change that situation. We're going to march. We're going to march.
Now, I'm not going to go any farther into this, but this is basically what he said that night in that church. Of course, we all know Jesse Jackson's great for getting in church and stirring up shit. But the problem is, the part that came out later was the simple fact that Trayvon Martin did have traces of THC, which is an ingredient in marijuana, in his body at the time, and that he had problems in school. He had been suspended. He had been a troublemaker, and it all goes to the fact that this is part of your makeup. It's what I call core values, okay? And while everybody can say whatever they want as to whether Trayvon Martin was a good kid or a bad kid, I've seen one too many parents that think their kids walk on water, and yet when you see the kids out of the house, on the street, on the block, you wouldn't recognize them as the same person. In closing, regarding race baiter Al Sharpton, Tawana Brawley, okay, now this was a re-interview, June 3rd, 2013. 1987, Tawana Brawley was supposedly raped by 6 white guys, made the news, a couple people were arrested, a cop ended up committing suicide, even though it was later found it was completely a made-up thing. And I don't know if I got enough time in my batteries to let the thing run full, but I'll give you as much as I can of it. And then you realize what a race baiter, what a liar Al Sharpton has been since 1987 and even before.
Tawana Brawley is a 16-year-old girl whose story is the talk of New York these days. The New York State teenager who claims that she was abducted and raped by 6 white men.
In the late 1980s, Tawana Brawley became a household name as her horrific story spread across the nation.
She had KKK written across her chest and nigger across her stomach,
leading to widespread outrage.
We're going to expose the facts in these crimes that you do against black people.
And intense soul-searching about race in America.
Let Miss Brawley represent what we're not going to stand for as parents, as Americans, and as human beings.
But how did investigators discover the truth behind the Brawley rape, and what is its legacy today?
I think that the lessons of Brawley is very instructive for me and others, but I think that people want to cut off the lessons where they want.
In November 1987, a news story from a small town 70 miles north of New York City shocked the nation.
Special segment tonight, the Tawana Brawley case. She was found wrapped in a plastic bag, by some accounts, sexually assaulted.
The 16-year-old cheerleader said she'd been abducted 4 days earlier and had been repeatedly raped and sodomized.
She was found in a fairly frightening state. She had a pair of sneakers which had been cut with a razor. Her hair seemed matted and covered with feces. There was writing on her chest. The jeans that she had were burnt in the crotch. It was like this is not a normal state to find someone.
More unsettling was the claim Brawley made on national television about one of her attackers.
He was a cop. He was a police officer.
Brawley attracted a team of activists to her side. The Reverend Al Sharpton, C. Vernon Mason, and Alton Maddox were well known in the press, having recently focused attention on another racially charged case, the killing of a black youth who was fleeing a white mob in Howard Beach, Queens.
New York State is now the capital of racial violence.
In the Brawley case, they saw the makings of a cover-up and demanded a special prosecutor take over.
I was a spokesman for the legal team and the family of Miss Brawley. I was involved to help bring light on the fact that there was a situation that needed to be adjudicated.
We are not going to let this girl be the scapegoat of a corrupt system. We want to show the world how low down, dogged, and callous the state of New York is.
Brawley's advisors declared they had a suspect, a young police officer named Harry Chris Jr., who had committed suicide days after her attack.
The media now has released that Tawana identified Chris.
What's the evidence, Sage?
Tawana's voice on the tape identifying Chris.
With protesters taking to the streets, the state attorney general dispatched veteran investigator John Ryan to upstate New York, with orders to solve the increasingly sensitive case.
We attempted immediately to sit down with Tawana and her family and we reached out repeatedly to her attorneys, her advisors, and that was never fruitful.
Her lawyers, it was their decision, along with her family, which I announced, that they did not want to cooperate because they did not trust the special prosecutor that was appointed by the governor.
We might send them a letter, and then, they'd have a press conference.
They're at a press conference, and all of a sudden Alton Maddox pops out with this guy's name.
Her lawyers charged that Dutchess County Assistant District Attorney Stephen Pagonis was among the girl's attackers and demanded his arrest.
We have the facts and the evidence that an assistant district attorney and a state trooper did this. She made statements to the lawyer. She never made statements to me. I did not ask a 15-year-old girl what happened. I believe the lawyers believed their client, and I believe that we had an obligation to go forward.
Without Brawley's cooperation, Ryan tried to divine some clues from the initial police investigation.
In the course of the interview with the police, she literally only said one word. She would also indicate, I believe by eye blinks, they would ask her a question and she would indicate yes or no. The police officer took what they could get. She was found in a grassy area behind the building that her family had previously lived in, very near the apartment that was then vacant but unlocked. She had literally just come off being grounded because she got home at 5 in the morning from some party. She goes to visit her boyfriend in jail, and then she eventually takes the bus home, and that's the last time anybody saw her officially during those 4 days.
From his headquarters at the State Armory in Poughkeepsie, Ryan and his team struggled to make sense of a case that seemed to grow more complicated every day.
We were an investigation under siege.
We closed the bridge, the court, and this building, and Main Street.
The press had its agenda, no offense. The advisors had their agenda, no offense. Quite frankly, we had to view it as those of us in the Armory against the rest of the world.
There were scores of false leads. An acquaintance said he was with Brawley. He wasn't. A man claimed to have secret tapes that cast doubt on the veracity of Brawley's advisors. He didn't.
We started a rumor about a 9-fingered man, just to see how long it would take for a press report, to call us and start to ask about the 9-fingered man. I think it took 2 days.
But such moments of levity were brief.
A trooper starts up the steps of the Armory, and these demonstrators decided they weren't going to let him in. He grabbed the demonstrator that was fighting him. Next thing we knew, Reverend Sharpton was accusing me of kicking a blind man. That bothered me. You realize how a lie can spread.
Her advisors have said a lot the past few months, charging that white local officials were involved in the crime, not to mention the Mafia, the Ku Klux Klan, and the Irish Republican Army.
Sharpton called Cuomo a racist, compared Abrams to Hitler, and said Brawley would go to jail rather than cooperate with the investigators.
Maddox would actually say that the Attorney General of the state of New York was masturbating over pictures of 15-year-old Tawana Brawley.
They looked up and they saw Maddox, Mason, and Sharpton. What's wrong with them? What was wrong with us was crackers didn't choose us.
I think a lot of the rhetoric, including mine, went too far. But I think that there's a difference between the rhetoric and the reason we got involved.
But at the time, that reason was questioned by one of his own associates.
They are frauds from the beginning.
Perry McKinnon, you couldn't see Sharpton without seeing Perry McKinnon in those days.
Okay, my batteries are getting ready to run out. I'm going to shut this down right here. Reload a new set of batteries to keep it going. Hang tight. This will be a part 1 and part 2. Hey, what are you going to do? I got just a cheap little old video camera. Alrighty, guys. I'll be back here in a second or 3. Let me get new batteries in it, and we'll get part 2.